Coming up next, it's a gorgeous new tablet from Dell, 2 brand new cameras from Sony, and an infrared doohickey for your iPhone that lets you see like the Predator. You gotta watch before you buy.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Before You Buy is brought to you by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Before You Buy is brought to you by FreshBooks, the super simple cloud accounting and invoicing solution designed to help small business owners save time billing and get paid faster. Try it free at freshbooks.com/BYB. Hey, and welcome to Before You Buy. It's Twit's product review show where we go down into the basement of the brick house where we get all the latest and greatest gadgets and doodads, and we hand them out to members of the Twit staff to ask for their honest opinions. This first product is, well, it's a tablet, but it's not just a tablet. It's a tablet from Dell that promises to be the last tablet that you're going to want. We gave it to our very own Jason Howell, and this is what he thought.
Hey, what's up? I'm Jason Howell, and I've spent the last, week and a half with this. This is the Dell Venue 10 7000 convertible tablet. A few different pricing options. For $499, you get a 16 gig version, or you can upgrade that to $629, and it comes with the little keyboard dock here. Or $549, you get a 32 gig version with an upgrade to $679 for that version plus the keyboard attachment. And kind of looks a little funky, doesn't it? It's got this little cylinder down here. Those are speakers in the front. It's actually a really nice 10.5-inch tablet, larger form factor tablet. We aren't seeing a whole lot of the larger form factor Android tablets these days. I think that's kind of an experiment that companies have stopped working with, but Dell's brought it back, and I'm happy that they did. Let's take a look at the specs. This is a 10.5-inch 2560 by 1600 OLED display. That's 288 pixels per inch, so very sharp display. 2.3 gigahertz quad-core Intel Atom Z3580 processor with 2 gigs of RAM. Has 16 and 32 gig storage options. The unit that I'm reviewing here is the 32 gig tablet. And micro SD card slot for expanded memory or expanded storage, 8 megapixel rear facing cameras. And you can actually see on the back there, these are the Intel RealSense cameras, one on both sides, and then the main camera up at the top for depth sensing with your pictures. And then a 2 megapixel front facing camera, 7,000 milliamp hour battery, and 5.0.2. That's Lollipop. All right, so here's the big differentiator with this tablet. Yes, it's a funky design, but it's really solid, really tight. Everything feels very just concrete and like this could really take a beating, but it can be a little heavy on this edge. Basically, in this cylinder, you have the battery inside here. And the reason for this is this, the other component. This is the keyboard dock. This is what really transforms this device into more of a productivity device than just a tablet. And as you can see, it just pops right in there. Literally, I can pop it right back out and right back in. It's a really easy way to do this sort of thing. And the convertible tablet approach is awesome because it allows you to, I could swap it around and have it backwards, however you want to do it. It just basically flips all around. There we are with it sitting flush. But it's a really great design. It's pretty thin. Like I said, the cylinder is a little heavy, but that's because of the battery and the hinge mechanism, so I'll forgive it. And the speakers, the front-facing speakers, are actually pretty loud. So then when you're in the laptop mode, that actually makes it really kind of nice. If you start watching movies or whatever on here, you're going to hear it loud and crisp. Now, the other hardware component here, obviously, is the keyboard, and that's the big differentiator with the Dell Venue 10 7000 tablet. I love how they kind of thought about its integration. Down at the bottom here, when you plug in the USB power on the side, it's located at the bottom of the tablet, but at the top of the keyboard extension. And that just makes it kind of seem purposeful, seem like it was thought out and that it was placed well, as opposed to like on the top of the tablet and then it's sticking out strangely. So they did a good job there. Also, where the speakers are placed, obviously that makes things nice and loud. The trackpad is often a big downside on keyboard attachments like this, and actually I thought the trackpad works really well. It's got a nice kind of push to it, nice clickiness. Same with the keys that are also backlit in darkness. So a lot of thought was really put into this keyboard attachment, and I highly recommend if you're getting the tablet, you get the keyboard. It does cost a little bit more. You're paying anywhere around like $130 more to get the keyboard accessory added on, but I think it's worth it in the long run. The display is excellent. It's a 4:3 aspect ratio, super sharp, deep colors, definitely a selling point, a high point of this device. And you just kind of have to see it to believe it, especially on the larger screen form factor. It's nice to have really sharp, vivid colors and not see those pixels. Camera, you know, what do I always say about tablet cameras? It's nice that they're there, but are they essential? I guess to some people they are. This tablet is no different. The pictures that I took on here ranged from good and excellent light, and some kind of close-up shots that I got of some flowers and stuff look okay. But when you're going into any environment where there isn't a whole lot of light, or there's even just okay light, you're going to get a lot of grain. The front-facing camera is serviceable for video chat, that sort of stuff. But, really, you're not taking amazing pictures with the camera on this tablet. And, along that line, there's the RealSense sensors on the back, which is a nice gimmick. You can see why they put it in there, because they have the technology, and it certainly sets itself apart on a spec sheet. But are you going to use it all the time? Probably not. So worth checking out, but I don't think it's a selling point of this tablet. As for performance, I'd say just in general, things are rock solid. Skipping around the interface, things are pretty fluid. I played some games on here and had really good performance with the games, in fact, except for the fact that some of the touch screen interfaces on games are meant for smaller screen devices, but you're going to get that on any large form factor tablet. Browsing is good, except for a few stutters. I did the Verge test as well as a few other sites, and image heavy sites can be slowed down a little bit as you browse through, but I've seen much worse. Alt tabbing through the multitasking can sometimes be quick, sometimes slow. And when you're in the keyboard environment, that's something you're going to want to do, to be able to skip from one app to the next. But it wasn't a deal breaker. It's just sometimes it would take 2 to 3 seconds to kind of kick in there. And speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about the software here. This is Lollipop, and I'm really happy to see that Dell's going with more of a vanilla approach with Lollipop. There's just a tiny bit of bloat on here. Some apps that Dell has included, like their own gallery and a few others, to kind of give you access in the gallery in particular, that gives you access to some of the advanced depth processing that you get from those RealSense cameras on the back. Some keyboard issues, I would say, and that just kind of relates to Lollipop in general, right? I personally don't consider Android to be the OS when it comes to using a keyboard attachment. They don't seem like they are made with each other in mind necessarily. But as far as that is concerned, it works for the most part. There's just a couple of weird things, like system navigation on the keyboard doesn't necessarily match the Lollipop aesthetics. That can be a little confusing. Keyboard sometimes forces a portrait when you have your tablet in landscape in the keyboard dock. And this is actually evident in Dell's own gallery app. The first time you launch it, everything goes sideways, and you're forced to look at it sideways while you wait for it to get through the onboarding process. So a few things there are a little weird, but for the most part, it's the kind of thing where if you do this for a week, you're going to feel comfortable, you're going to feel at home, and it's going to make a lot of sense to you. And finally, Android for Work is included starting with Lollipop, which basically means that IT, the enterprise, they can manage and control your Android device here with the Dell Venue 10-7000. They can do that for you and isolate the business side of things from your personal side of things. So that's the Dell Venue 10-7000. I've had a lot of fun. I actually ran my entire All About Android show from last week using this as kind of a test to see how it would work in a normal environment where I use, a device with a keyboard, and it worked really, really well. So let's take a look at the pros. It's the best keyboard dock solution for Android, hands down, that I've played around with. The display is sharp and it's vibrant. Love the display. And stock Lollipop software. You can't go wrong. All right, now let's take a look at the cons. First, Android I wouldn't necessarily is made with the keyboard in mind, like a hardware keyboard in mind. There's a few things here and there, but it's not a deal breaker. And finally, the cylinder on the tablet itself can be a little strange when it's not docked into the keyboard. So if you're thinking about just getting the tablet, you might want to think about that. Overall, if what you're looking for is a productivity environment that uses Android, then you really can't do better than the Dell Venue 10 7000. The tablet itself is a great performer in the large form factor category. And then when it docks into the keyboard, it's kind of transformational. It's a really great experience. Lollipop could use a little bit of improvements to make it even better, but overall, I think you're going to get what you want. And that makes me say that, this tablet is definitely a buy. My name is Jason Howell. You can check out my reviews on All About Android. Thank you so much for watching.
And it's a buy for the Dell Venue 10 7000. If Jason's going to give it a buy, well, since he's the Android master, it's got to be good. You can find Jason Howell on the Twit TV network on Tuesdays, All About Android, and Wednesdays for Android App Arena. Yes, we know they both are AAA. Let's move away from tablets and talk a little bit about cameras, specifically high-end cameras, cameras that you're going to want for your next trip, for your next project. We decided to speak to our photography expert, Mr. Trey Ratcliffe, and take a look at the Sony A7R Mark II and Sony RX100 Mark IV.
Hello, I am Trey Ratcliffe, and I'm here to talk to you today about these two Sony cameras, the Sony A7R Mark II and the Sony RX100 Mark IV. That's right, yeah. It's hard to keep track of all this stuff, and I'm kind of an expert in it, I guess. So let me first talk about this one, all right? Now, this is sort of like the flagship of this of the Sony A7 lines. The Sony A7R II has 42.4 megapixels, which is enormous. Couldn't be any bigger, really. It has the new 5-axis stabilization, which means that the sensor kind of revolves around inside, and it makes all of your lenses that you have totally stabilized as well. So that will allow you to use a slower shutter speed, and you can maybe have a little bit higher ISO shot, but you'll get a nice steady shot with that axis stabilization. It also has a new upgraded autofocus system, which is basically 40% faster. The way they achieved this is now they have 399 points of focus, so it's incredibly fast. I used a younger sibling of this one in Africa, the A6000, and the autofocus system on that was unbelievable. I never had an autofocus shot of an animal. It's just an unbelievable system what these guys are doing. So this is their most expensive one, the A7R II. That's probably the only downside. It's about $3,000, although it is cheaper than a lot of high-end DSLRs, so that's good. But a lot of the pros about it are that you can put any lens you want to on there. Right here I have a Leica lens on. This is a Leica 21mm Summicron f1.4. And yeah, I just totally love it. This camera, it completes me. Now, its younger brother, this is the Sony RX100 Mark IV, and it's a great camera too. It's super handy dandy. This is actually the main camera that I use like at Burning Man, or sometimes when I'm just walking around the streets and want to do street photos. Once you get into photography, you're just like addicted to it. You can't get enough of it. So even walking around the streets of San Francisco here yesterday, I was using this. It's got an amazing back on it. It folds out. It does all kinds of crazy stuff. You go totally Cirque du Soleil with this thing. It's great. If you don't want to use up all your battery power, one of my hot little tips is just to pop open this thing, okay, and that turns it off automatically. And this is your kind of electronic viewfinder, which you can look through right there. It's an amazing image. It has a new sensor stacking system, so it can write super fast to the card. What that means basically is you get 16 frames per second, which is unbelievable. I mean, super fast. There's no way you can miss a shot at 16 frames per second. And then also this does 4K video. And one of the coolest features, and I don't know if anyone thinks this feature is as cool as I do, but it shoots video at up to 960 frames per second, and that's at 1080p. You can reduce that down in a few variants to 720 or to 480 frames per second or 240 frames per second. But you can do some really cool artsy slow-mo motion stuff with that, and it's super duper cool. Anyway, I have camera recommendations on my site on Stuck in Customs. I kind of have good, better, best, and I'm in the process now of possibly putting this camera as the most inexpensive version. It's at about $1,000. But it's so great. It does auto bracketing and just like raw photos. It does everything you need. So this might become my entry-level camera. All right, so this one is definitely a buy as well.
That's a buy for both of those cameras from Trey Ratcliffe. Hey, Brian, I mean, I understand that people like quality in their photography, but that's a lot of money to spend on cameras. Is that really worth it?
It depends on if you can afford it, Padre. But I think Trey was on last week's episode of the Screensavers, and he made a really good point that with these cameras, you can take a picture and shoot it raw with such high megapixels that you can then later zoom in and have the quality that you just can't get otherwise. So, yeah, they're worth the price, but it also depends on if you're just taking pictures of your family, I guess you don't need that high quality, but if you're doing landscapes and things like that Trey does, they are awesome.
It's like all things worth doing. I mean, you can get 90% there with the budget alternative, but that last 10%, that's going to cost serious money. And I mean, coming from Trey Ratcliffe, with his recommendation, yeah, I'd say take a look at Sony's lineup. It's getting excited. In fact, doesn't Leo use a Sony?
Yeah, I think he was visibly salivating when talking about that camera, so he's pretty excited about it.
So we may actually have a unit here in-house very soon. Well, we'll see. Let's go ahead and change gears up. Now, you know that we like to go out of the studio. We like to go to events, things like CES or NAB, or in this case, Mobile Focus here in San Francisco, and actually speak with the vendors who are giving us the next generation of gear. Well, we had a chance to go to San Francisco to Mobile Focus and speak with Zolt, with the world's smallest charger for your laptop. I'm Father Robert Balzer here at Mobile Focus 2015 for our first look. Now at CES, this was one of the devices that we wanted to take a look at, but we didn't have time for. This is the Zolt. Now I'm standing next to Steve Gibson, the other Steve Gibson, who's going to explain why this is the charger you want for all your things. Steve, thank you very much for talking to us.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Now, this is, you claim, the world's smallest laptop charger. Now, this isn't just for USB devices, although it can charge USB devices, but it's a tip system. So if you have an Ultrabook, if you've got a regular laptop, even if you've got a MacBook, this can do the job.
Even if you have a Chrome Pixel, it'll actually charge that. So this is, as you said, the world's smallest laptop charger, but it's also a multi-charger. So this will charge your laptop. 65-watt laptop and down. It'll also charge Macs that are 65-watt and down, but it'll also simultaneously charge your iPad, your phone, your camera, your GoPro. So it'll charge 3 things at once, your laptop and 2 additional mobile devices. It weighs about 3 ounces, a little over 3 inches long, super ultra compact, has folding prongs, so it stows away quite nicely. It has a rotating turret. When you plug it in, it'll rotate to free up adjacent plugs next to it. It ships with its own laptop cable and 9 interchangeable PC tips. And we also have a Mac solution that's available as an accessory online at gozolt.com.
I'm going to be honest, I've seen a lot of universal chargers before. I've seen a lot of nifty USB chargers. But the fact that this can charge MacBooks, I didn't think anyone could actually do that, or at least no one's doing it.
You know what? We're doing it. So we support both Mac 1 and Mac 2. Both of the current versions, and it's an accessory cable, plugs right in here.
All right, Steve, big question, pricing and availability.
So availability, it's going to actually ship in midsummer or late summer. It's available for pre-order right now on gozolt.com for $79.99. That's our pre-order special price, and it will retail for $99.99. Available at brick and mortar, Best Buy, Staples, as well as Amazon, and on our own site.
And if they want to go online to find out a bit more, where do they go?
gozolt.com, G-O-Z-O-L-T.
There you go. If you are a geek who has a device that needs a little pickup, maybe you need a little Zolt. We saw the Zolt at CES, but we never got a chance to shoot a video with them. So I'm glad that we could catch up at Mobile Focus. It is an interesting product. It's not particularly sexy. A lot of people don't look at laptop chargers as a piece of tech that they should think about. But when you consider how much weight it can save you and how a flexible system really adds to all the gadgets that you carry, I definitely want to get one in-house so we can give it the before you buy treatment. Now, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about an infrared doohickey that you can attach to your iPhone and see like the Predator. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a moment to thank the first sponsor of Before You Buy, and it's FreshBooks. Now, let me ask you this. Are you a budding entrepreneur? Do you do your own contracts? I know I did. Way back in the day when I was still contracting out, I had Excel. That was my invoicing statement system. Now, it worked well as long as I was only doing a few, maybe a few dozen invoices. But when my business grew and I started doing hundreds of contracts and they were involving people that I was hiring, well, it got to be a mess. I tried a couple of different systems. None of them really could measure up to what I actually needed. What I needed was an accountant, someone who would go through my books, would go through my contracts, would invoice these companies in time, remind them of when they needed to pay, and make sure that all of my accounting stayed neat. Well, if only we had FreshBooks back when I was in business, because I got to tell you, it's cloud accounting done right. Now, FreshBooks is the invoicing solution that makes it incredibly simple for freelancers to create and send invoices, track their time, and manage their expenses. All those things that you would need a dedicated employee to do, you can now do in the cloud. And they want you to try it free for 30 days. Now, during that free trial, you'll immediately understand why over 5 million people use FreshBooks today to keep their small businesses running smoothly. It's incredibly easy to use, even for those of us who feel like a fish out of water. I don't particularly want to do invoicing. I don't want to do financing, but FreshBooks interface just makes it easy for me to understand what's going on. Even though they handle all the back end, all the complicated billing and invoices, they make it simple for me to receive the information so I understand how my business is doing. And that's incredibly important, not just for keeping finances, but for keeping growth. Now, FreshBooks was designed especially for people who prefer to focus on their work and not the billing. And that's really what we want, right? We don't want to have to do the finances as a chore every 5 days, every week, every month, maybe every 2 months if we're really, really lazy. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just concentrate on the things that make your business grow? Help is free at FreshBooks forever. That's right, forever. And you can always count on their award-winning support rock stars to go above and beyond when you need a hand. Folks, if you're not using FreshBooks, you're just working too hard. Now, right now, getting started is simple, and it's totally free for 30 days with no obligation. Go to freshbooks.com/BYB. That's freshbooks.com/BYB. And don't forget to enter Before You Buy in the How Did You Hear About Us section to throw us some love. Start your 30-day free trial today. And we thank FreshBooks for their support of Before You Buy. Coming up next, we're going to look at something a little strange, very geeky, something that I have been wanting to play with for quite a while. Now, I have my own infrared cameras, network cameras. They're big, clunky items with really bad resolution that cost a lot of money. Well, FLIR recently released a new set of devices that attach to your phone. First with the iPhone, they're going to be moving over to the Android, that allow you to see in the infrared spectrum. We got one for our very own Miriam Jawar, and well, this is what she thought.
Hey, it's Miriam with Before You Buy, and this here is a review of the FLIR One, the new FLIR One. This is a thermal camera. It's capable of visualizing heat. It's really kind of cool. FLIR has launched another FLIR One before this, but it was only for iPhone 5 and 5S, and it was a case. You put your iPhone in it. With the new FLIR One, the price has dropped quite a bit, and it is now a dongle you attach to the bottom of your iPhone 5, 5S, 5C, anything with a lightning port, your iPad, 6 and 6 Plus, of course. And then there's an Android version I'm holding here, and here's the iOS. Android version is a brand new thing. It's actually going to be coming out in July sometime. So you get an early look. Both kind of plug into the bottom of your phone or the side of your phone if your USB port is on the side. The iOS version obviously has a lightning connector. So that brings in a few interesting things that I'll show you in a second, because with the Android version, the direction of your USB port will dictate which way the camera is pointed. Whereas with the iPhone, you can reverse it and have a what they call a thermi, which is a selfie of yourself thermal, or point it outward and visualize your world in thermal imaging. So I just want to take it out of the box so you can have a quick look at what's inside here, because it's not every day that you get a thermal camera to review. So just open it up and you can see here is the thermal camera. Basically, lightning port. You have two openings here. You have a normal camera and then the special solid state thermal sensor. And this is what FLIR's business is all about. They make cameras for commercial purposes, for the oil industry, for the car manufacturers, of course, for the military, for law enforcement, etc. But they've been making also commercial products. It just kind of plugs into the bottom of your iPhone. So now this is for the thermi, the front facing. And if, of course, because it's interchangeable with Lightning, if I go like this, I can actually, use it as a viewfinder. Now, another thing I didn't mention, there's a button with an LED on the side here. You can see it flashing green right now. That is the power switch. You can turn on and off, and it has a little battery in here. So what that means is that it's not draining the battery of your phone while you're using the thermal camera, which is a really nice thing. And of course, it can charge the battery via a micro USB port right here. So there's a micro USB charge port on the side, which charges the built-in battery, and I believe acts as a through port to charge your phone as well, if it's connected. So that's the iOS version. The Android version that's still in this box is exactly the same, but with a micro USB port. And again, depending on the orientation and the location of the port on your Android phone, it's gonna behave a bit different. They've optimized it to work on the Galaxy and LG phones to face outward, but on the Nexus it's reversed because it's facing inward. So there are some challenges there. The other thing that's in the box is this cool carrying case. This is a pretty sensitive sensor to light and other things. So as you can see, it's nicely recessed, but you can slide it in here and boom, you can put this in your pocket. There's a lanyard, a hole on the side here. So there's a lanyard provided in the box. You can see a lanyard and a micro USB charge cable and some manuals. But basically, you can carry this in your pocket without worrying about damaging it, pulling it out anytime you need. So it's a kind of a cool design. And then the other thing to keep in mind is you don't see it, but when you turn it on, there's like a little mechanical shutter behind the glass that opens up. It's really cool because this sensor is extremely sensitive to light and heat. So you don't want to get a bad reading. You want this to be cool, basically, when it starts. Cool in terms of electronic, sensing. So basically, you install the app, which comes from, the App Store. It's on the Apple App Store. It's already there, and it's called FLIR One. You can see it right here. Launch that. You plug this in. So I'm facing this monitor, which is very, very bright red because it's very warm. And as I scan around away, you can see some of the shapes of there's the very, very bright LED light in the sky and another very bright LED sky. And it orients properly. It does landscape and portrait. As you see there I am speaking in the microphone. You can see my glasses are a little cooler. So, at first it seems like a gimmick, but you can see there's crosshair here in the middle that tell me what's the temperature. So according to this, the middle of this monitor in front of me is at 96.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So it gets pretty hot on the surface of that screen, right? I mean, that's about the same temperature as my body, but it's pretty amazing when you actually find out the reality of the heat of things. What this is useful for, you're going to say, this seems like a toy, and I'm not sure I want to spend money on a toy. Well, I tell you, seeing this around your house and seeing the leaks you have around your windows, on your pipes, that kind of stuff is really amazing. In the back of the box, they say at home, you can figure out what kind of energy loss you have and optimize, and also any kind of electrical issues you might have. At work it says, find out if your machinery works properly. If you have if you're a small business, you have a factory, like a bunch of machines, maybe one is overheating and you have no idea and it's about to break on you, and you can kind of tell by looking at this over time, right? You can see that it's something's happening. And of course, there's the whole kind of fun aspect. It does show an outline of the thermal image And that outline is provided. This is my hand. It's provided by the visible light camera. So there is a flash you can turn on so that you can get some more light because it does combine the two images. Let me show you some other things about the app real quick. Of course, you can do videos, you can do photos, you can do panoramas, which is really amazing, and time lapses. So you can set it up, put your phone down for like half a day, or your iPad if you want to take your phone with you and you want to leave your iPad somewhere. And you can kind of see, is there, like in your garden, you point the iPad at your garden and you can see, is there a hot spot during the day? Is there a particular area of my garden that gets warmer than any other area where I can plant my tomatoes or maybe not plant my tomatoes? Stuff like that. It can show you a bunch of different color choices for highlighting. So you can do like gray maps, rainbow colors, because obviously, it's mapping right now a range of colors to temperatures, right? And so you can choose how you want that mapping to happen. The thing that I wish it had, the only kind of drawback to me really is that you can't combine the visual image. You can adjust how much of the visual image versus the thermal image you can see. And that is something that I wish they'd done something about, but they didn't. Maybe on the future version. Another thing that's interesting is after you've taken a picture, you'll see that after the fact, I can swipe down to see how much of the visual image I can see. But I wish it let you blend the two better. And that's one thing that I think is an improvement. It's just a software thing, so I think they'll be able to make it happen. So, I think this is a pretty cool device. It costs $250, $249, which is cheaper than the first gen, and it works on Android or iOS. You actually have to buy one for Android or one for iOS. You can't use them on both. But keep in mind that there wasn't an Android version before. So, I think it's very useful if you are a DIY person or a contractor and you want to you work in electrical, heating, or plumbing. You want to try to find problems in your home or if it's your business for your customers. It's $250 well spent. There's a number of applications that are really quite remarkable. So it's certainly not for everyone, right? And it's also still very early in the thermal imaging consumer space, but I think we're going to probably have these kind of sensors built in by default in all our phones within 10 years. I wouldn't be surprised. And frankly, I think it's a buy. For $250, I mean, it's like you're getting, essentially military grade technology for personal use. It's remarkable. So this was our FLIR 1 review here on Before You Buy. Check it out. It's $250 and it's a buy.
Now, it is a little bit of an expensive item. Yeah, just under $250. It is a lot, but these kinds of devices really do open up what tinkerers, what makers can do with their phones, with their tablets, with the devices that they already carry with them. So more power to them. Don't forget that you can find Miriam here on the TWiT TV network. She's often a guest on AAA, All About Android, on Tuesday nights, and here on Before You Buy. And if you want to find out what she's doing in between those shows, don't forget to go to her Twitter account, twitter.com/tankgirl. That's TNKGRL. Just take out all the vowels and find out what she's been doing in the tech world. Now is the time for the parting shot. The parting shot is when we look at a product that otherwise wouldn't get a full review, and we give it just a couple of minutes to see what our impressions are. This time I'm taking a look at the Boogie Board Jot 4.5. This is a 4.5. I don't exactly know how to classify it. It's e-paper, but not really e-paper. I consider it more of an Etch-a-Sketch. Now, the idea is you've got this surface and a stylus, and you can write on it. Now, it does look a lot. Let's see if you can actually get in the overhead shot. I'm not sure if you can see it. Yeah, there we go. So it does take notes. You can write on it. You can scribe on it, and then you can hit this little button, and it will erase it. So if you wanted to leave notes, this becomes your Post-it. This becomes a nice, easy way for you to jot down notes. And then it's got this protector so that you can keep people from erasing it. accidentally. Now, you don't need the stylus. This is actually touch sensitive. I can use my finger and do the same thing. It is a very interesting device. It does lend itself naturally to scribbling. This is something that you can throw off to a kid because it's actually very, very well made. It's pretty strong. It doesn't flex a whole lot. The battery will basically last forever because like e-ink, the only time it ever uses power is when you reset the screen. So unless you reset the screen 10,000 times continuously, you're not going to drain that thing. It is low cost. This is $14 to $15. I'm sure as we get closer to the holiday season, you're going to find these things on sale for $10 and less. And it does kind of have a use. I mean, I have found myself playing with this device every once in a while, but I got to say, unless your handwriting is really good, and mine is totally not, it is probably not the most effective way to leave notes. In fact, it's probably a lot easier for you to go ahead and leave a Post-it. What you find is that even though this is a stylus, the stylus line is so big that there's not actually that much effective room on this tablet for you to draw. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, it's only $14, it's only $15, it's only sub $10. They actually have smaller versions and larger versions of the Boogie board. And at first, I thought it might be worth it for you to spend the money just for the novelty of drawing on it. But after using this for a month and having it in my bag, I probably used it the first week or so, and I had fun with it, and then it just became something that was in my bag and I thought might get destroyed. I'd have to say, unless you have a kid that you really want to give an electronic device to, don't think about getting actually any useful work out of this, then the Boogie Board Jot 4.5 is a don't buy. Still, don't let that dissuade you. If you want a way to write like they do in Star Trek, maybe this is for you. That's it for this episode of Before You Buy. We want to thank all of our reviewers, especially to Jason Howell, to Trey Radcliffe, and to Miriam Jouar for their reviews. We couldn't do this show without them. And we want to thank all the people who make this show possible. That includes Lisa and Leo, to Karsten, our super producer, and of course my TD, the cranky hippo, Mr. Brian Burnett. Brian, where can people find you on the TWiT TV network?
They can find me doing Know-How on Thursdays with you. We've always got a few cool projects coming down the pipeline. And on Saturdays, doing TD and the Screensavers, which is makes this show really easy, actually, in comparison. But those are the two places, so check them out.
Absolutely. Don't forget that you can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/PadreSJ. There you can find what we're going to be doing for the different episodes of shows that I do here on the TWiT TV network. And you also get to find out what I do when I'm not twitting out. Normally I'm flying some quadcopters or some nonsense like that. Don't forget that you can also find our show every Friday, 2 o'clock-ish Pacific time, live at live.twit.tv. And as long as you're watching us live, why not jump into our chat room at irc.twit.tv, and you can interact. We've got a screen down here so I can see what you're talking about. If you have questions about the products that we're reviewing, that's a great outlet for you to interact. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballas here, and remember, you gotta watch before you buy.